And so I think dentists, we tend to have that, I don't know, we're on our own little island, but we would love to have others that we talk to. But mentoring the young dentist right now, I think is critical to the long-term success of dentistry.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Bruce B. Baird, and you're listening to the Productive Dentist Podcast. In this podcast, I will give you everything that I've learned over the last 40 years in dentistry, working with thousands of dentists. I'll tell you, it's not that my way is the only way. It's just one that has worked extremely well for me, and I'd love to share that with you so you too can enjoy the choices and lifestyle that productivity allows. More time for things you love, increased pay, better team relationships, and lowered stress. Let's get into it with this week's episode of the Productive Dentist Podcast.
Hi, this is Dr. Bruce Baird with the Productive Dentist Podcast, and today we're going to start episode number 108. I had the great opportunity this past weekend to have my nephew, who's actually in dental school and is just starting clinic junior year, and just had so much fun just sitting and talking. And he had one of his friends up with him too, that's another junior in school with him, and just kind of getting, it's been 41 years since I was in dental school, but to see the excitement and to see kind of the questions that they were asking and the things that they were interested in. They've started several different groups, and I've had the fortunate opportunity to go down and lecture to the students down there. But they're forming a business group across the country with dental schools, and they're trying to expand and grow that. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. When I was teaching at Baylor several years ago, 20 years ago, I remember I'm sharing all these practice management tips and all those things that are really, really going to be important when they get out and potentially set up their own practice. And I would have 3 or 4 of the docs come up afterwards and ask questions. And the rest of the class seemed to not really be interested that much in business. They were just hoping that, oh, if I could just pass my boards, and I remember those days, if I could just pass my national boards, and then if I just need to pass my state boards. And there are things that are obviously very important. You have to check the boxes to get out. But these kids seem to have just a totally different thought process. And that brings me to something that I think is critical in our opportunity to help other dentists. And I know we're kind of in our own little silos or in our own little worlds, but what a great opportunity to mentor. And that's really what I wanted to talk about today is mentoring, younger dentists. I think I was telling them, I've never worried about competition. I've never worried about somebody coming down the street. I remember years ago when I came here, one of the dentists said, well, there's, dentistry is really tough here in Granbury, and you really ought to go out to Stanford, Texas, or somewhere out West Texas. They really need a dentist. And that's not where I wanted to practice. I wanted to practice here. And so the help I got was pretty minimal. I remember a couple of the docs that were in town, I called them up and I said, hey, would you guys like to do a study club? And I'm a young dentist out of the military, 4 years. And they said, oh, we tried that several years ago and it didn't work. And I'm thinking to myself, what do you mean it didn't work? I mean, if you're going to have a study club and show cases and work together, and so I think dentists, we tend to have that, I don't know, we're on our own little island, but we would love to have others that we talk to. But mentoring the young dentist right now, I think is critical to the long-term success of dentistry. I was concerned. They were telling me about the ADA's student section that goes into all the schools, and it's just totally inundated with DSOs that are telling them how great it is. It's supposed to be an education class on practice management or whatever, and it turns out to be a sales job from the DSOs to come to work there. And that's our ADA providing this. It's an arm of the American Dental Association, and we're paying for that. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I got the really wonderful opportunity to spend probably 5 or 6 hours. We just sat around and talked, and to realize really what's going on in the dental schools today. They are really heavily being recruited, by the DSOs, and that's fine. I mean, if I had a DSO, that's what I'd be doing. But what are the opportunities that we have to mentor these young dentists? And I started asking about clinical stuff first, and they're just now getting into the clinic and starting to see patients. And uh, I asked a kind of a silly question. Well, it wasn't a silly question. I was asking them about when you guys are casting your crowns and doing that stuff, because we used to cast our own crowns, wax them and cast them and do the whole 9 yards. Well, they don't really do that anymore. Uh, they don't have casting wells. They're not using investment and investing crowns and casting them. They're scanning stuff and sending it to a laboratory, and the lab's doing that work, which that's cool. I mean, I would rather them be learning other things that are going to be much more important in their journey in dentistry than investing in casting a crown. But I look back and I think, well, at least I did that back in the old days, the wagon train days of dentistry, and it helped me, I guess, have an understanding. Plus, I learned how to make jewelry, so that was good. And but there were just those things that have changed so much in dentistry. But what really hasn't changed is the dentist's knowledge of business and how you run your business and how you do those things. And these guys are forming this group nationwide that really wants to help dentists in their business and starting in dental school. And so, as a practicing dentist, if you're a practicing dentist, and a dental student or somebody that's in dental school, or if somebody comes by and says, I'd love to observe your practice, I'd love to watch your practice, please take that opportunity to give back to dentistry, because I really believe that the future of dentistry really is going to be, it's either going to be driven by DSOs catching them early in school or some type of mentoring that dentists can do amongst themselves, the study club concepts and those different things that we do. But talking about business, talking about scheduling with the pay, how do you schedule? And I had the great opportunity to say, most dentists in the country, they schedule very inefficiently. And he said, well, they taught us how to do it. They don't really talk to us much about any of that. They talk to us, they talk to us about, how to do an onlay or how to do a crown or how to do a filling, a restoration. But the business class that you had in dental school 40 years ago, which we didn't have, they still don't have. And I think it's almost a game plan where if you don't understand business, then you're going to go and you're going to either struggle drastically when you're trying to open up your own, like most of us did. Some learn more than others, or they're going to go into a DSO and just try to learn that way. And I think dentistry should be much. I think we should have a much better situation. Have some type of business training for students when they either in school. And I remember at Productive Dentist Academy, we've had, some of the most successful dentists in the country actually came through Productive Dentist Academy when they were in dental school. I can name off multiple that ended up with multiple practices, huge offices, huge production, just because they understood the business from the get-go. And I think a lot of us, I didn't have that. And when I started out, I mean, I've told this story before, but I mean, I suffered, and I after 7 years, actually after about 3 years, I was just really disillusioned with dentistry and we were doing well. I was seeing new patients and everything else, but I just didn't know how to run the business. So What I guess what I'm saying is, if you get an opportunity to help mentor a younger dentist, it's really something that, gosh, I just enjoyed it so much. And I think they were so appreciative of just kind of getting a different perspective, not even a different perspective, but a perspective about business, because they're really not getting that in dental school. So um, help them, have them walk through, have them. And what I told them is, when you have the opportunity, uh, and my nephew, his mom and dad are both dentists. So he's had a great opportunity to watch business and to learn it, but he's still wanting to learn more. Before, as a junior, beginning of the junior year, both the guys were just really wanting to understand that. And so I spent this time talking to him about communication skills. How do we talk to the patients? What are the best things that you can do to get into a relationship with patients? What are the things that tend to cause most of the issues? And some of that might be financial arrangements and patients not showing up for appointments. These are all things that, if they can get more information now, it's going to help them when they do go into practice, whether they're an associate in a practice or whether they're in their own business. But by shortening that learning curve, there's no reason why we can't help dentists become successful. I've had dentists say, well, why would I want to help dentists become successful? They're going to set up across the street from me, and, it's going to be competition. Well, that's a very scarcity mentality. I've never looked at dentistry that way. When I started in Granbury, Texas, there were 5 dentists and 3,000 people. And today there's about 6,000 people, 7,000 in the city limits, about 50,000 in the county, and we have over 30 dentists, 35 dentists. And my philosophy was, well, if I have an associate leave, even though we have covenant not to compete, and they set up across the street and all my patients start going to them, well, I don't look at them as my competition. I look at myself and say, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And so really, let's think differently. Let's help mentor younger dentists. And I think through mentoring another dentist, and I think what it does is it really expands your own, it expands your own vision of what you want your own practice to be like. You start talking about things like, for instance, and I really talked to him about scheduling a lot, because most dentists are running behind all day. And I said, then patients are waiting. So I went through that whole scheduling that we talk about with them, and their eyes were just, open, and they were really listening to every word. And for me, that, I don't know, no one shared that with me. It was just the old school of hard knocks. And by the time you get through it, you've either been successful at getting through it, or you ended up being disillusioned and then ending up not having the practice that you wanted. And so it's not about competition. It's about helping people. And it's about, and it's not what you get, it's what you give. I heard a great sermon this last weekend from Jonathan Evans. Tony Evans is his dad is one of the most well-known pastors in the country or in the world. And but Jonathan really, it's his son, played in the NFL, 5 different teams. He's the Cowboys chaplain, the Mavericks chaplain, but he said, if you give, you get. And but everybody's so worried about getting. And so I just share this with you. It was a great weekend for me. I just looked at it as something that was that God wants us to do. Share our experiences with younger dentists or dentists who are just starting out. Share your experiences. Give them an easier road. It's not easy, no matter how you do it, but it certainly makes you feel good when you're able to help others. And so think about that. Think about mentoring younger dentists, even somebody in your town that's already practicing. Talk to them about setting up a study club. It'll grow you as much as it'll grow them. So anyway, I hope this podcast was good for you, and I look forward to next week. Stay safe. Tell your friends about the Productive Dentist podcast.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Productive Dentist Podcast. If you found this episode helpful, make sure you subscribe. Pass it along to a friend. Give us a like on iTunes and Spotify, or drop me an email at podcast@productivedentist.com. Don't forget to check out other podcasts from the Productive Dentist Academy at productivedentistpodcast.com. Join me again next week for another episode of the Productive Dentist Podcast.